Sunday night and we're live. Hey, it's Sunday night. It's Facebook, and here I am again, Moffitt Talks Live, coming to you to find out what is going on in your world. What is going on in my world? Oh, I'm really excited about something I'm creating right now for people who have been interested in working with me, and I'm super excited about it. My first group coaching program that is going to launch in January. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Hey, Tom, good to see you too. And so that is something good. I'm going to go to Palm Springs for a couple weeks. Go on Saturday. I'm super excited about that. Just to see some different walls, look at some different walls for a while. I've over the last several weeks have been culling my client list, meaning that I've been putting off having clients rejoin. So until December. So I'm actually slowing down my clients. That's all been great. Oh, thanks, Tom. It's just all natural time, just so you know. There's no makeup on this face. Let's see, what else? Oh, that's it. I think I'm just really excited about. Oh, and I'm gonna get my convertible top fixed this week, finally. That's good news. So there's that good news. Yeah, lots of good things. So today I was thinking about what do I want to talk about today? And I really love this idea in this conversation. I picked up Brene Brown's new book called Atlas of the Heart. And in it, she talks about, I think, over 80 different emotions or experiences that we have, and our lack of awareness of the variety of emotions that we really experience, and how that lack of awareness actually makes our lives a little bit smaller. To be able to differentiate between the different emotions that we're feeling means that our experience of the world gets smaller. And so I really wanted to take a look at that and realize that our ability, our language actually creates our world. How we're able to explain what happens to us is our way of being able to create then what happens to us, right? And I think there was an interesting study done with people who have been in prison, incarcerated, and they have a scale of about 3 emotions: happy, mad, and sad. And, obviously there's a world of other emotions we can experience, but because, you can only think if I'm negative, then I'm angry or I'm mad, that there's just limited ability to express all of the different ways we can feel. And if there's only one positive emotion, and that's happy, then everything else is either got to be a negative emotion, right? I'm either sad or I'm angry if there's no other differentiators. And so I thought tonight I could just kind of share with you this idea of the importance and power of our language to create our experiences. And it's kind of like this idea of, even if you were to have an experience, how you tell the story of the experience is super important, right? So for instance, if you ran into a car, well, you could explain it like this. You could say, "Oh, I bumped into someone's rear end," right? That sounds different than I smashed into someone, or it sounds, which sounds quite different from I annihilated someone's back end. And I realize there's some double entendre in there. Uh, but how do we express ourselves gives us our experiences, right? So sometimes when I'm working with clients and I'll hear them say, "I'm terrified." I'm terrified. They might be looking at, putting a blog post up, or maybe they want to post something on Instagram. They're not putting themselves out there, and they tell me that they are terrified of doing it. Now, when we hear that language, right, I just want you to take this in. If you're terrified of something, like I would be terrified if someone broke into my house with a gun, or I would be terrified if someone, busted open my window and broke through here and threatened to, slash up my hands. That's a different feeling than posting something up online. I could say I'm anxious about it, or I'm nervous about it, or I'm worried how it's going to be perceived. But when we use language like terrified, that actually sends signals into our body that makes it blows it out of the water, makes it a bigger experience that maybe it needs to be. So when we think about how we explain the events of our lives, we can get into this kind of using big language. Yes. Well, I wonder, Rick, I would probably pose that question back to you. Do we need to constant reframe, or I would be curious around I'm gonna I think you're putting a good question up here. Do we need to constantly reframe? I'm wondering if there's something, or does it writing it down get it done? I think one of the things that we need to be curious about is, even when I write it down, how is it that I write it down? What are the words that I choose to report on my experiences, right? Am I devastated, or am I a tad bit hurt? Those are like two different experiences that you're going to live and create for yourself. The moment we start explaining and creating our world, we start living into that world. So if I explain to someone that I was devastated by a breakup, my life fell apart. That happened. Or can I start retelling the story of, man, that really hurt. I got through it for sure. I learned a lot of lessons. At the time it was really hurtful, and now I'm so glad it happened. Or 10 years later, do I continue to tell the story that I'm devastated by it? And language like that, it's really important for us to understand the power of our language and how we experience and create the stories that we tell about our experiences, because we live into those experiences. We have to be really choosy and conscious about how we're telling those stories, because those words then begin to live in our body, right? Imagine how devastated feels in your body versus I'm a tad bit hurt. And they could be different experiences for sure, but being conscious about it, does it keep you trapped in that experience? It does allow you to move through the experience. Doesn't and I'm not eh, please know that I am not encouraging any kind of toxic positivity, or, denying your experience. But I am inviting everyone to be a bit more aware of how we create our experience, because that's exactly what we're doing by the narratives that we use to talk about our experiences. And even when we talk about our futures, the things that we want to create, are we saying things like, it's impossible for me, I can't do that? Well, unfortunately, that becomes your reality, because when we tell ourselves that story, we don't even open up our mind to the possibility that it could be possible for us. We can't even see the options that are available to us, because we are not allowing our minds to look for the opportunities out there. Hi, Evelyn. Nice to see you, my friend. So, this idea of creating your language, your stories that you're telling yourself, it's a constant creative process. We are in a constant state of creating, and dare I say, writing our narratives in our head, whether we're aware of it or not. We are constantly in the space of creating our emotions, the things that we're reacting to based on the narratives that we're telling ourselves about an experience. Oh my gosh, Kelly, it's so great to see your name here. And this is just one thing I was going to bring into the idea, just so a little primer to the idea that your language is creating your reality right now. And we have to be aware of that story in every moment that we're creating, and to be able to ask us, is this story serving me? And even when we're in our grieving state and our pain state, and recognizing those are normal human places that we need to be, do the stories that we create here, do they keep us trapped in that space? Or are they stories that allow us to process and move through? Mm, yeah. Uh, Kelly, and it may very well been. I love that, Kelly. I don't think that that's a wrong thing to say if it really was a terrible a terrible Thanksgiving, and maybe there is a grieving that you have to go through with that. And I would be curious around, is there any light? And Kelly, oh my gosh, I know you to be a person, if there's a person on this earth who is a light seeker, I know it is you, my friend. And, being able to have the experience and experience the grief that you may have had in that moment, I would come back to you and say, and it might have been the worst one. And was there any light that you might have possibly seen as well? What would happen if we reframed this, that this happened for you and not to you? What's the bigger and greater thing? And my friend, I do not say that lightly to you. I know you have created and experienced amazing things in a really tough and dark times in your life. So I want to just say maybe it is the worst and maybe it is just really hard and you need to grieve it and that's okay too. Uh, and yeah, I'm going to blog about this, Tom. And I just want anyone who's here, what I've been super busy on in the last few weeks, as my coaching clients have closed out their sessions or their 6-month contracts or 3 months contracts, is in January launching the Rewrite. It's an 8-week program for me and a small group of people to work together closely to help people with this kind of thing, to be aware of the language and how can we create better and stronger personal narratives so that we can become the heroes in our lives, so we can see how amazing we really are and be able to tell that story on a regular basis and help us stop ruminating in those times and those present moments, and also to create a really powerful future for ourselves through the language of creation. And I'm super excited for that to start in January. But my friends, thank you so much for coming out. You know what, Kelly? I knew you would do that. You are that person, my dear friend. So yeah, I just want to put Kelly. I became aware that saying it over and over made me feel worse. That's right. Your awareness is so great, Kelly. To be able to call it out, because that's exactly what happens. Our language is creative. It's creating our experience. So the more often that we're talking about how terrible and awful and where the world is, guess what it is? Terrible and awful. And that's all we're being fed. So Kelly, you have come into this space right now, my dear friend, and brought in light. You are just a reminder for all of us here that there's also light and goodness here. Yeah. And that today, I love that you arrived at calling it a very challenging time for you. And what I know for sure is you've survived. And not only that, but I know because of it, you've also thrived. You have an amazing story to tell, my friend. So glad you're here. So glad to see your name, Kelly. And for everybody else, I hope you have a great rest of your week. And my dear friend, I've seen you thrive on the stage as well, Kelly. You've had real moments of incredible thriving. Yeah, change your internal monologue. You're in total control of that, Tom. I love it. I'm just going to pop that up. That's exactly right. First part of it is that how do we become aware of it? And the second part is then how can I consciously choose a different dialogue for myself that allow me some more self-compassion and movement into the direction that I want. I love you all that showed up. Thank you so much. I'll be around, of course, next Sunday. This has been Moffitt Talks. I love you all. Bye.